Well, if you like true crime, you're probably going to love this. This is Flashback Perspectives. I'm Instructor Thompson in my self-defense studio. This is our podcast and blog on real violence and remembering, flashing back to the perspectives that we had during and after real violence, real attacks have occurred. My guests, and some of them are instructors, some of them are martial artists, many of them, well, they all wear many hats, but they live in the polite society that we do today. Except for when polite society breaks down, that primal comes out, things change. Our perspective then is different than how we think it might happen. Our perspective after is different than during, and our perspective long after often starts to change a little bit then too. Please, if you enjoy the series, listen and learn vicariously the best way, because the price has already been paid. It's been paid in full and often paid in blood. Up next, we have Instructor Hargrove. Instructor Hargrove, known across social media as Blackie Chan. I like to call him the surgeon. If you're familiar with his work, it is just amazing. But if you're not, I call him the surgeon because he moves with surgical precision. All of the motion is phenomenal, and not only being an FMA, he is a multidisciplinary instructor with amazing lessons. With this and our interview here, he shares a very important lesson about what it's like to face off with multiple attackers, and things that we can learn from that are truly amazing. It's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast and series, because these lessons we don't have to learn ourselves, because the price has already been paid, and people who can give perspective now on very important things that we want to know. I'm a very big fan of Instructor Hargrove, and I hope you'll check out his social media as well, as these things are extremely important, as is his lesson. Salud. Enjoy the interview. Evening, everybody. This is Flashback Perspectives. We're going on to episode 3 now, and joining me of Instructor Hargrove. Instructor Hargrove you can find on TikTok, and I'm going to ask him to go ahead and introduce himself, and I am so excited for him to come share his lessons with us. You have to go see his channel, and we'll just listen. Sir, if you would, please tell us about yourself.
How you guys doing this evening? My name is Christopher. I go by the moniker Blackie Chan. As he said, my name is Christopher Blackie Chan Hargrove. I'm a 43-year-old martial arts instructor, and I teach martial science. Martial science is directly related to your art, in that your science, of how to manipulate the body and different aspects of the body, is in relation to how you relate that to the world, and that's where it becomes an art. So, you have different ideals with martial science, and I like to take part in all of them. That's how it works.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So when you said you got started really young. When did
Yeah,
you first get started in martial arts the first time, and was it going to a commercial location?
yeah, I was about 4. I went into a commercial location, 2 week free gi, free participation certificate type scenario. And I went in and I was like, okay, I can do this. But I'd always been intrigued. I watched martial arts movies from a very young age. Anime was not anything new to me. I'm watching Gumball and things like this back in 83, 84, 85 even, so these were things that I was on as a child. So these things weren't new to me. But the ideal of martial science and martial arts was, uh, I felt like it was inherent. It was inside of me.
Right. That's awesome. That is excellent. So you've been teaching. When did you first start teaching?
Um, I got my first teaching commission when I was about, I had to be at least 22
Okay.
when I started teaching. I became part of programs at the local civic centers that teach different things, everywhere from fathers as teachers, Uh, and as of recent, I've been part of a program which is called Protect Your Peace, where out of this, we've created a training course which we call Protect Your Peace Academy.
Mhm. That's awesome. Very, very cool. I look forward to hearing about that and all the stuff that you do. So before we go into the story, I know everybody can find you on TikTok. Do you have any of the other socials or
Yes,
anything?
sir. I am official Blackie Chan on Instagram, and I'm also Christopher Blackie Chan Hargrove on Facebook. Um, Christopher Kristoffer, and Blackie Chan Blackie Chan Chan, and Hargrove Hargrove.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Yes, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to go ahead and give you a follow. You will find so many fantastic videos, and I love all of his motion and martial arts motion. You can see it, but I always like to call him the surgeon because you have got to see his weapon work. It is phenomenal. This is some of the best I've seen, and I'm just one of your biggest fans for all that you do there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you,
So,
thank you. That's part of the game. Is being precise, but also remembering to be humble because that tool is just an extenuation of your arm or your hand. And without that original knowledge, that tool is nothing. So,
absolutely, absolutely, very well put, sir. So we're gonna go into the story. We're gonna share with us the experience that you had in a basically flashback perspective. And if you will, sir, in your own words, tell us about what happened and your experience in violence.
well, violence has been something I've been aware of growing up in the city as a child, moving around in the city as a child. But one incident, I was about 15 years old. There was a scenario over a girl or something of that nature. And I had never been in a situation where other boys wanted to help another boy fight because of his dislike of a young lady liking me. So at first I wasn't aware of what was occurring,
Right,
but as you know, the confrontation uh, escalated, I noticed that they were kind of circling me. And at this point, I've been training for a while. I've studied different things, but part of me studying and learning was my father, basically like, if you use it at school, you use it to do anything or anything of that nature. We're not going to allow you to go to class.
right,
So I'm trying not to fight. I ended up having to fight, but because of the number of individuals, I took a beat down. And I promised myself from that point on that no matter what type of art it was, I was going to learn and I was going to try to never allow anything of that nature to happen to me ever again.
right. Wow, wow. Was that so? Was it at school then where you were attacked?
Actually, I was at the mall.
Hmm.
I was at the mall. It was after school. Um, and when it occurred, I was like so dumbfounded because we're at the mall. There's
Right,
police here, the security guards, and you attack me at the mall,
right,
of all places. And I thought about that and I'm like, well, if that could happen here, that could happen anywhere.
right,
Now, what if this had happened 8, 9 o'clock at night on the local restaurant parking lot?
right,
Nobody there to stop that,
right.
so that could have been catastrophic.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that it almost doesn't matter how many individuals it was because I have a similar thing of getting jumped by two people. But it was more than just a couple guys. I was like three or more. Or how many were there?
hmm
There were,
I think there was like 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, I got beat down for a good a good, I have to say, 2 or 3 minutes before some older guys came and kind of broke it up. But it was
Oh,
it at after the initial couple of slugs, and I made contact a couple times. I was always taught don't kick in street fights.
mhm.
So I wasn't kicking. I was just throwing punches. And I think I got hit in the back of the head or something, or side of the ear or something like that, and I went down. And then
Right,
it was just shell and cover after that. But I think
right.
I got kicked at least 15, 20 times.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
about 15, 20 times.
That is
Yeah. But it,
so.
it, it taught me. It taught me that up until that point, the martial arts I had been taught, that made me overconfident
Right,
because I knew that in a one-on-one situation I had it. I knew at the musical kata I
right,
was great
right,
and I got a medal every time, you
right,
know.
right. Right. Yeah,
But that true life application, I didn't have that, and that was an issue.
yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely, and that's commercialization of these things, and that's some of the hardest there in learning the difference between the school. So, and I know this isn't one that we had talked about yet. But for you, when you think about these things in the difference in what is taught in martial arts and martial arts schools, and what it really looks like now, or ever since that experience, like how does that like
I I don't. I do believe in the traditional martial arts school, but inside of that martial arts school, there has to be a real life experience vein
right,
to your teaching,
right,
whether that is pressure testing, whether that is um, having other uh, instructors from other veins of martial arts come in and talk about what they do and application, or just allowing them to study real life situations. There's so many pages on um, different platforms about fighting.
right,
And if you pay attention to any of those, you can get some real good studying points. Some people's stances are incorrect. Some people are throwing kicks and jumping in the air and doing different things. And you can get that, ability to analyze fight situations and then up your own IQ with that.
absolutely, 100%. Yeah, there's and I'm glad that you mentioned that specifically in literature. I always feel like there's a lot that is left out of the dojos that you can, because you can't really learn how to fight inside of a library or a book, but there's a lot of things that are in the library and the books that they aren't teaching in schools either. And
Exactly.
getting that cross reference for sure. So on the
And
baseline,
that's the main part of it. That's the main part of it. The cross reference in training is what will make certain things more relevant or visible to
right,
all of your students. So if you're only teaching that this method or that method works, well, then you are shortchanging your students, if you
right,
ask me.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. I know the context in which where they're taught and how is huge, gigantic.
Exactly. And then they always have to find a way that works best for them. And that's what
Right.
the main objective is there.
Yes, sir. Yep. Yeah. The cookie cutter version of these things doesn't work. That's the part that doesn't work. One size fits all is not a thing here. You know,
No, no,
it's
no.
absolutely absolutely
Size does matter. Your height and your stature plays direct uh, cause and effect in relation to getting in,
right.
stepping out, creating distance,
Yeah.
cutting angles, all these different things. Size and stature matters.
Right.
It
And the
does matter.
training, absolutely, yeah. And the training you have those
And training, yeah,
methodologies look
definitely.
way different. And
Foot placement is everything when you're trying to evade.
that, yeah, 100%. There's a lot. Yeah. I love so much of your teachings. I could talk to you all night with these. So let me ask you this: on the baseline, before this event occurred, what was your general worldview? Did you feel generally safe in the world, or were you already kind of a cautious person?
I'm always been a cautious person, even as a small child, because like I said, I grew up in the city. So I was taught certain types of people play certain types of games. They may ask you a question to get close to you. They may um, beg for money. They may walk behind you and follow you, all kinds of things. So
Right.
I was always one to watch my surroundings. But this false sense of security, I guess, kind of changed because we moved to the county, and this event actually occurred in the county. Like I said, so I was surprised that they even were, in the way to go do this at the mall. So, like I said, y- 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 before this, I probably would not have ever even thought it would happen.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like I said, learning certain things may or may not give you a false sense of security. And I felt like at that particular time, I did have a little bit of a false sense of security because I didn't
Right.
understand the magnitude of violence
Yeah.
that a group could exact.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've been in a fist fight or two before, but as far as a group setting, no, I didn't know nothing about that.
Right. I had a video today, and TikTok flagged it. But I had a video today
Uh huh.
talking about that, about how you're not looking at this to the vantage point of when you don't need a black belt, you need a funnel and a door, and there's a big difference between trying to fight the circle of people than the tactics matter. That's
Exactly.
that's the whole
You
thing
know,
about it.
uh, it's. I always tell people a one-on-one fight you can win.
Right.
A two-on-one fight you can win. A three-on-one fight, 50-50.
Yeah.
Four-on-one fight, you survive. That's all.
Yep. No, absolutely.
I don't care. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you are. You got four skilled grown individuals swinging and punching at you.
Yeah.
Something getting hurt.
If there's
Something getting hurt.
even if they're not skilled, yeah, I'm hard up taking four people at the same time. That's heavy. Four adults that want
You
to hurt
know.
you, yeah. That I've
You
never
know.
done anything that wasn't real that didn't all get hurt. I think that's going to happen no matter what. And these are the big differences, between that commercialization of martial arts and what it looks like. And you know, there's a lot of these, and I'm reading that from the baseline of your worldview. There, you paint a picture of the setting. What were the sounds and smells of the vibe in the room or the street before things shifted?
Well,
Was it a
it,
calm before a storm?
it was it was initial confrontation, seeing me in the mall, riffing, talking trash, walking past me, circling back around. The regular mall smells, the fountain, popcorn from the movie theater,
Right.
kids laughing, moms screaming, babies crying, smells from the food court of orange chicken.
There you go.
Things like that.
Right.
But um, the biggest sound that I remember was the astonishment of the adults, the adults during this scenario. No one got involved.
Right.
They just yelled,
Right.
"Stop that. Don't do that.
Right.
Your mother raised you better than that." And
Right.
I'm like, shit, my parents didn't raise me better than fight back. They whooping my
Right.
ass.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, you hear this,
Yeah.
but you're getting hit.
Right.
I'm getting hit, but I'm hearing this outside commentary. And it's like, wow, this is really happening.
This is, yeah.
And
Shock factor.
Long story short, like I said, here it is, like my eyes this big, my lips fat, my pride's hurt, and now I got to go explain to my daddy what happened to me.
Right. When you did
It's-
that, were you concerned about that part? With that almost more, or was it something that you know?
Oh no, actually, I wasn't worried about that part of it at all. I was more worried about the social aspects of it. To
Mhm.
be honest, I'm 15 years old. I'm a
Right.
sophomore in high school.
Right.
So I was more worried about it getting back to school and if I was going to have to deal with it in school.
There.
And, over the course of the next, say, 3, 4 months, I did have to deal with one of the individuals again. And that one went a little different because it was a one-on-one fight. So, uh, yeah, so that fear of that happening again, that was definitely there. But I definitely had amped the training up by then.
Right. Yeah. That's good. That's gonna be one of the questions coming up here. In hindsight, were there any quiet warning signs, like a look in someone's eye, a change in the air, or anything that your brain noticed with the logic you ignored?
The initial scenario, I was with friends that drove, that had a car. So when I initially came through the door and we ran into that group of individuals, I should have said, "Let's go to a different mall." We
Right.
were in a vehicle. We could have went anywhere. We could have
Right.
went anywhere.
Absolutely.
But I didn't think of it like that. That's where everybody else was going to be. It was a Saturday night, kind of deal. And I think my overconfidence in my previous training combined with a little bit of bravado and ego made me stay, you know.
Yeah, and that's training can do that too. Is that one of the reasons why? Because you were trained, and so you're thinking if the one
Oh yeah, I can
behind
handle.
the one.
If he shoots the fast one at me, I got it. I can
Right.
handle it. I didn't think anything. If it had been a matter of disrespect
Right.
or something of that nature, I could understand his friends jumping in, but I didn't think that other guys cared so much about another guy
Yeah.
dating situation, that they
Absolutely.
would help him beat somebody up over a girl.
Absolutely.
I didn't really think about that. But like I said, when it all came down to it, I got thumped that day, but I always said never again. And so everything that I did after that was how to take defensive action and turn it into offensive motion. So
Right.
taking that potential energy and turning it into kinetic energy and controlled energy. That's all.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And yes, that's you know so many of these with that. And we get it coming up on that question here soon. I'm very interested to hear that part of it. I think we're the last one for um, this part of the section because we go through in each of these we go through the basically the beginning and then the middle and then the end and then the way after for your perspectives on them in the
Okay.
shift. In the shift, can you describe the exact second when the social mask fell off and you realized this was a violent reality? What did that transition feel like from that moment?
It was the second swing.
Okay.
The first swing, second swing, ah. But it was the second swing from the second person. The first one came across the face, but the second one hit the ear. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh. Then I felt another one hit the forehead. And this is from the third individual. And
Wow.
it's over the first individual's shoulder. So it's like, oh, this is happening. Then I got hit in the back of the head. Then I got kicked. And I was like, oh, okay, this is happening. Wait a minute,
Right.
And yeah, factory reset a little bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Speaking of factory reset, the a sensory tunnel. So people will often report auditory exclusion or taxiphasia, where the time just slows down in the perception of it. What happened to your senses in that heat of the moment?
Everything was fast. Nothing slowed down.
No.
It was like it may have been a minute, if that, 2 minutes maybe. The whole altercation. But during that time period, the only thing I was thinking about was I don't want to get killed in the mall.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I hope don't nobody got a gun. That's all I kept saying to myself. I hope don't nobody got a gun.
Right.
You know.
At any point did you think, because there was that many of them, that they could beat you to death with their bare hands, bare knuckles?
Well, and that was the thing. I think that it was more of that pack mentality
Right.
rather than a disrespect situation where firearms or knives would even be involved.
Right. Okay.
I think it was more of a now that I'm an adult, she hurt my feelings, so I'm going to hurt you,
Right. Right.
type
Gotcha.
situation.
I have a saying on this. I wonder if you would agree with me on this. I almost always find that in one way or another, most all violence, not necessarily 100%, but I'd say 99.9% of all violence comes down to a romantic inclination, or girl or boy. Usually I tell all the
Hmm.
class of all the boys, girls, money or drugs. One of those three
Oh yeah.
is almost always the reason for these things.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen so many guys get thumped over the years over grass.
Yeah.
Especially in high school. Smoking
Mm-hmm.
pot.
Absolutely.
Smoking, and they didn't put none in on it, and next thing you know, or something come up missing. Things like that. That was one of the things that I saw a lot in high school, especially. Uh, if somebody had a hiding spot for their liquor
Mm,
and it came up missing, stuff like that.
right. Yeah. No matter what. Anytime I have experienced anything, I always look for the three, because I know somewhere in the story what happened. It transcended from that point.
Oh yeah.
Somebody did something with
Hmm.
one of those three things, and that's absolutely. So with the internal
That's the end
dialogue,
of it.
that's yeah, it's kind of sad that humans were. Well, I think you said it perfectly. It's simple. It's complicated, but it comes down to very simple principles every time, you know, in the way humans behave.
Hmm.
So for your internal dialogue there, what was the very first coherent thought you had when you realized you were in danger? Was it calculation or a prayer or a command of some kind?
It was basically don't high side and don't get knocked out.
But okay, that's good. I like it.
It was don't high side and don't get knocked out. You know, uh, I knew trying to be strong or macho and stand up was going to get me hurt.
Right,
So I allowed for the stumping and the kicking because I knew at some point either mall security, the cops, or older individuals were going to break it up.
right,
And that's kind of what happened. At first they were just yelling, and then an older gentleman came and grabbed one of the boys, and then the security guard grabbed another guy, and then the cops came, and they just all kind of stood back, and I kind of stood up, got my legs under me a little bit, and they're telling me to sit down, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm hurt, but yeah, I'm good. I'm stand up, and
right,
people were like, damn, he got up. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't get knocked out, but I'm hurt.
right.
Had a couple goose eggs,
Yeah,
busted lip,
right.
you know.
Was that part of it for you when you're thinking about just to not get knocked out, specific because
Hmm.
of you knew that could kill you or end up in a coma or
Oh
something?
yeah,
Or-
I knew getting knocked out and getting kicked is different
Right,
because you're it's nothing defensive going on.
right, right.
You know what I'm saying? So I
Mm,
knew I had, and that would, and definitely get knocked out would have turned uh, that into the juggernaut situation. At that point, that individual would have thought they did something.
right.
You know how that goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
So I knew I had to at least stay cognizant and stay shelled up long enough to get up out of there.
right. That's awesome that you were able to do the shelling from that point. We often refer to it as caging, and it's I've heard it a number of ways, but I truly believe for defensive measures that is what is going to work best in most cases is as you do your 52 block system, those things when you're absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yep,
And that's basically back of the neck, top of the head. I still have a perfect sight of vision.
right, yep,
You know, I can still see,
right,
things of that nature, but, I have been introduced to that during my regular formal uh, martial training. So um, that was already a part of my accoutrement, if you want to call it that. It was one of those little things I had in the bag. So, uh,
no, that's perfect. I think
you
your
know,
ability to survive from those.
yeah, that's all that was. That's all that was, and that was taught to me by my uncle, who had spent some state mandated time.
Mhm. Yeah,
Time out.
right,
He came on with that, and he explained that they utilized this deck of cards to train, and they would train under these basic ones, and he taught me a couple, and then like I said, over the years I've learned a couple, and then I'm like, okay, I started applying that kinesiology to that, and now that's where we're at now with the style that we present.
that's awesome. That is awesome. I am the biggest fan of those maneuvers. It is always a higher probability I feel of getting to yourself and getting coverage than it is going out and
Yeah,
meeting the threat and having enough energy to kinetically stop the threat from
because
bringing
if you
you
think about
anyway.
it, exactly, am I going to if okay, an outpointed sword is only as dangerous as it is on target.
Mm-hmm. Right,
Okay,
right,
but when a person with a extended fist is crashing my center line, if I crash his as well, what's
right,
going to give, the hand or the elbow? I think it'll
right.
be the hand.
Yep.
And that
Very nice.
applies to stopping grabs. That
Yeah,
comes to getting kicks out of there.
right.
You got your skull and bones,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got your Comstock, but that's Comstock can turn into a snake,
Right,
and now you've caught the leg. If they tried to kick you, you're punching on the inside of the femoral artery, you're shutting down the nervous system, you're doing all these different things. But these are just templates,
right.
okay? But
Absolutely.
when the application comes, it just depends on the situation and how you end up.
Right, right. Where is the skull and bone? I've heard you mention that a number of times. Where does skull and bones come from?
Skull and bones is just basically that X motion that is created with the hands.
Right,
You're here protecting the head and the low line.
right,
You're here taking the head and the low line.
right,
You're here. You're here. Now I'm coming back. I'm protecting my armpit.
right,
I'm protecting my armpit, washing my hair,
right. Okay. So knowledge is
all
coming.
these different things. These and the different areas have different terminology for it, but basics are spear, Skull and Bones, Comstock, window wipers, the X block.
Right. I love
Uh,
that. Okay.
it's just, but it just depends on where or who you may have studied with. It's just like any other system. Everybody's worried about lineage, but like I said before, I don't believe in those things
Right.
because knowledge and science, science is free
Right.
in that your body only works one way.
Right.
Your body can only do one thing or another, or bones and tissues can only be manipulated in a way that they're meant to work. So if we start putting thumbs on forearms, middle fingers on elbows, I
Right.
think we're using science.
Yeah.
Now how you get there is the art form.
Right. Absolutely. That's,
Uh,
I love that terminology. I had not heard that term for it. Maybe just a few
yeah.
days ago, I had gone through a video on our version of it, and I like what you say about that too with lineage, and because I didn't have anybody in Kempo who was going through it, but a whole lot of FMA guys do it, and a whole lot of Muay Thai guys do it. Um,
Oh yeah, if you are not from a particular lineage, your Muay Thai is not solidified, and that's cool. You know, um, Here in America, if your teacher has not gone to the land or
mhm.
gone to the Philippines and learned, or gone to Thailand and learned,
Right.
they're like, oh, does he really know?
Right.
Does he really understand? But
Yeah.
it just comes down to application and a level of practice.
Absolutely. And that's a good point. I have studied with people who have, but in teaching those myself, I have not. I've never gone over there. Although I also don't try to call it, specifically to sell Muay Thai, but that we will practice the principles from them. The more I've seen of your stuff there with the 52 blocks, the more I've been a big fan of. All of that motion is just
Like,
exactly
even inside of here with
right.
Muay
Yeah,
Thai,
right there. Yep. Yep.
even inside of here, that same
Right. Right.
is still there.
Right.
This is just centralized for small space.
Mhm.
As we know that 52, everybody says this is a prison art. Yes, it was. It was learned inside the prison, but that deck of cards was utilized in a way to disguise what they were learning from
Right.
each other, from the powers that be. That's all.
Right. That is a wonderful thing. Have you heard of there's one called, I want to say it's called, is it Kudos? I had seen somebody
Kodos, yes.
who was doing Kudos, and I had not heard of that one, but it looked very similar. Um,
It is an art derived here in the last, I'm gonna say, 20 years.
okay.
And it's a system, and it's basically based off of blockings and flowings rather than the hard line of
Right.
52. It's more interconnected,
Okay.
you know and that's how that works.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little more interconnected. You have things like cutting off the main line. I can see you, but because that forearm's there,
Right.
you can't see me.
No, not much.
But
Yeah. Right.
and that's all off of protecting my head.
Right.
You know,
I love that.
that's all off protecting my head.
Yeah.
This is like a spear out. That elbow's a spear out. Your hand from the top of your head can play pity pat, knocking things down, knocking things, together, giving you opportunities to either grab, lock, do whatever you need to do to get out of there.
Right. That's awesome. There is, yes, and talk about interconnectivity. My goodness. So the gift of fear, going into our final section here in our last four questions. What is
Okay.
something that you understand about human nature now that the dark or the light, either one, that you could never have understood without this experience in the first place?
A scared man will kill you.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have seen some of the most frail, non-fight assuming individuals do some damage. And it wasn't because they were skilled, it was because they were deathly afraid of what was the outcome if they didn't do something.
Right.
I'm not going to put his name out there, but I have a friend that is in jail for the rest of his life because he was scared
Man.
and he didn't
Sorry to hear that.
know, he didn't know uh, the ramifications behind what he was doing. He just knew they gonna hurt me or I gotta hurt them, and he hurt them mortally, and he ran off.
And so
And we were very young then when this
right.
occurred, but the law took that as him being
Guilty.
malicious
Right. Right.
and him being an evil gentleman, and they painted it as gang violence, but this was not that at all. And unfortunately, that young man has had to utilize his fear a number of times in jail to where he won't ever see the street again. So
So sorry to hear that.
yeah, but it's one of those things though.
Right.
That's where you have to understand what you are dealing with
Right.
before you get into some of these situations.
Your responsibility for it, for sure. Let me ask you this: I do
Yes,
have
sir.
I have a thing about this that I tell all of my guys, because even if you don't, so lawyers are really important. And even if it's whether you can afford a really expensive one or you get a public defender, your strategy and whether you give it to them or not is up to you. But I always like to tell all of my guys, I will either train them to specifically go live from social media because you can't erase it. People have seen something before. Use your phone to record, or my personal favorite, I have a number of body cams, and they're hidden body cams. So you got the pen camera, you got different things, the button camera. Would that have helped him in the situation?
Yeah, technology definitely would have changed that situation from 1995. We probably wouldn't even be talking about it because the way that scenario went down, um, his response was the response of anybody. Um, like I said, I don't want to get too much into it, but let's just put it like this: you're at home alone, you're in your garage, you're working on your mini bike. Guy comes up to your garage, said guy, you've exchanged words. Guy threatens to pull a gun. He and another gentleman say they're going to take things from your home. You try to defend your home, and let's just say both of these individuals got dispatched
Mm-hmm.
with a screwdriver.
Right. Yeah.
And so, uh, and that was out of fear, not out of skill or anything of that nature.
Right.
That was pure fear.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it becomes something different.
Right.
So you got to know the difference in what is legal and what it can be considered or misconstrued as malicious. That's all.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's I'm so sorry to hear it. I always like to ask that one for these, because I have heard a couple of times that there is times where body cam wouldn't have helped in it. No matter what, these always can be used against you anyway. But the reason I always say, you have a pen camera like that doesn't mean you have to use it. It can't hurt if you don't use it. It's why you got to give it to the lawyer for them to make the call on whether you use that footage.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, they'll tell you. They'll tell you if that's. Oh no, that's not a good idea.
Right.
That looks like a kung fu movie. Nope.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Right.
That looked like you did Jackie Chan, movement number 17 on him. Man, you can't do that.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
Yeah.
We can't let them see this.
Right. Yeah, and but having that, not having it, because if the point was to prove it was out of necessity, And that's why I always tell my students that I want you to let them make the call. You get the recording in the first place, so you have it.
Hmm.
Because it could go easily the other way too. But all right, sir. So, does anybody else call you the surgeon? By the way, because that's just what I started calling you ever since I saw that one video. I was like, this man is a surgeon.
Oh no, no, like everybody talks about how precise I am with everything, but it
So,
is more about um, for me eliminating the threat as quick as possible.
yep,
So I look at it like fumbling around with your tool, doing a lot of slashing and stuff. That is what it is.
right.
My thing is, if I had to pull that tool out in the first place, we're not going to be slashing.
Nope. Very much so the same
you
thing.
know,
Very much so the
you
same thing.
know,
I don't mess around with any of that. It's
you know,
a jugular
it's
and
like
carotid artery instantly.
yeah, bow, bow, bow. That's it. We
Yep.
done. Fight
I,
over.
I loved that hyper to Medusa, the way Brian was talking about it. I was like, yes, sir. That's how you do it right there.
I mean, it's simple. Point. What did he say in Zorro? Pointy end goes in there. You know,
Right.
like that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you study cadences of people. I
Right.
like people who are under the influence of drugs
Oh, yeah.
because if you ever pay attention to their cadence is a stutter step and it
Mhm.
has no rhythm.
Right.
Has no rhythm. So
Mhm.
in a attacking situation, you would want to use some of that, uh, I guess, craft of being, you know, uh, unpredictable, unrhythmatic,
Right.
with your motions, in effort to thwart or to throw off, your assailant.
Mhm. Mhm.
But people don't understand it's got to be that way. It can't
Right.
be rigid. It can't be, oh, when their hand is here, I do this. When
Yeah.
their hand is there, I do
Yeah.
that. No, it doesn't
No.
work that way.
No, those really only need to be taught as options. Like you could. What you're going to do in the moment is going to depend on you and him and circumstances, and there's a million factors there. So I love all
We're
those things
taught
that teach
that
that.
circumstances dictate tactics. That's one
Exactly.
of the biggest things we're taught.
100%.
So, that is
Absolutely.
what it's all about.
Yeah.
If a guy's coming up out of an alley, okay, we understand. If a guy is, God forbid, but a fight breaks out at a local pool, everybody's wet
Right.
somehow, some way. Somebody's got a weapon, an edged weapon of some sort. We're adding an element of slipping and falling and all kinds
Mhm.
of different things.
Right.
There's so many different things that get added into that when we start talking about edged weapons versus hand to hand combat. It's just so many different things, man.
Right.
But a lot of people don't like to try to understand that. They just, oh, you go straight for the weapon. That's not how it works.
I,
That's
I
not how it
won't. I
works.
won't even teach disarms. It's not. I did that video over my student who was murdered in a knife fight, and I put it in there that I think you should go listen to every instructor and decide what's right for you. But I won't show disarms because I don't think you got time. I think if that comes out, you have a couple of seconds to get him first, and
Yeah. It's make a decision.
right, 100%.
Yeah, it's make a decision, and it's
Yeah,
it's one of those things I mean, it's hard to explain. You
right,
got to make that decision faster than what your emotions can allow, if that makes sense.
right. Oh, absolutely. No, we were just talking about that with the reactionary gap, and that not only are you in a time deficit every time, because that's the part I hate about everybody who always just said go get a gun, and I'm like, tell me you have no firearm experience without telling me. Like that's great when you
Yeah,
can say you knew about the threat ahead of time. What are you doing when
yeah,
you got hit, or all of a sudden now you've been stabbed a couple times and now you're being attacked? Like
yeah.
that gun doesn't do
People don't
nothing.
realize. Stealth attacks are nothing. When you know there is a presumed threat, there's time to think, there's time to assess. But when you don't know there's a presumed threat, that's when things become a little bit hectic, and that's where you have to decide: do I get in or do I get out? Do I do something of a defensive, offensive nature and break wide, or do I get in here and I go to work? That's the difference. And then you got to make sure it's justified. That's the other part. Is this justified? Am I justified at going to work? You got a gun in your face. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You and your lady friend are leaving the nightclub. Go to work, son.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think
Go to work, son.
every circumstance is going to be like that, though. You gotta, but that's the worst part about it. Everybody talking about it afterward, even in the courts. You got all the time in the world to think about ethics. Then,
Oh yeah.
you got you're not afforded that luxury in the moment. That
No, no,
perception is just
it
what
would
it is.
not. People do things all the time, and you don't understand why they do them.
Mm-hmm.
But when violent acts occur, um, it's not always the individual that's the most violent or the most skilled that overcomes. It's the individual whose fight IQ is
Right.
higher than the emotional capacity of the
Mhm.
other individual.
That is a
Okay,
fantastic point.
so like, okay, here, for instance, if he's angry, his emotional state will definitely affect his fight IQ.
Right.
If you are calm, now see, it's hard to be calm if there's arguing first.
Yes, there is.
There's hard to be calm when there's arguing first. So what you try to do is you try to keep yourself at even tones as not to increase your heart rate, which will cause you to stutter in motion and things like that. But what occurs is if you have that slowdown, I think you have that as a question here. If you have that slowdown time in your brain, it might be microseconds,
Right.
okay,
Right.
as opposed to a second itself. But you are in that moment saying, do I move this way? Do I move that way? Or do I leave this alone?
Right.
And most times, like I said, gun in your face,
Yeah.
leave it alone. Try to leave it alone, especially if you're not armed with the same amount of, resistance.
Yeah.
Um, gun in deployment, you got a chance.
Mhm. Right.
Gun in deploy, gun in deployment at 3 to 4 feet.
Yeah.
Go to work, son.
Right. Yeah.
Go to work, son.
Cooler rule. Absolutely.
Control the wrists, control
Mhm.
the trigger guard,
Mhm.
keep the weapon away from you and your loved ones,
Right.
and with that other hand, go to work.
Absolutely. No,
you know,
that's probably the worst
yeah.
part with the firearms. We see it all the time. And that misconception is that firearm, and Kanata and I were just talking about that in his interview. The whole it's only a weapon when it's in one particular position. The knife is a weapon everywhere. It doesn't matter.
Boop,
You know,
boop, boop. You
absolutely.
try to grab it from me.
Right.
Ah,
And that's why we don't do.
goofy.
That's exactly why we don't do disarms. You're getting caught. You know that. I think the whole thing from FMA and the caging. I teach my guys the blocks in the beginning from Campo so that they have it. But I hate that idea of you have to go out and catch it and speed out to them to try to get to them before they get to you. And where when you're just caged up like that, and like the things you do very similarly, it's you call it a 52 blocks. That
Yeah,
100%, 100%. You're faster
because
getting to
when
your own body.
I'm faster to do this,
Yep.
blocking my armpit, blocking my neck, than
Right.
it would be for me to go.
Right. Yeah.
That's not gonna happen.
Right.
Now, you know, I don't know about you, but I do train at falling backwards.
Mm-hmm. We call them positional
Now,
duress. We train in several
you
of them.
know, Me personally, I like a straight back.
Mhm.
You
Right.
know, but if you're an ankle guy, that's a good one.
Yeah.
But I mean, eh, I don't want to put my life in the hands of an ankle holster.
Right.
Uh,
No, no, no. That's secondary. You know,
you know,
some chest rigs are okay, and I don't necessarily even mind under, for shoulder holsters, but I think hip is as far back as I will go, and appendix
yeah,
carry, it's got to be right there that fast. And my favorite one, though, I tell you what, is my coat pocket. There's a 38 special
yeah,
revolver just right in my coat pocket. They don't even see it. And so I can
nah.
just be like, please don't do that, and then pop, 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 and then they don't even know. I got to get a new jacket, but you know,
I'm leaking. I'm
I'm
leaking.
thinking,
Uh, there's foreign material inside of the womb. I think that's Pierre Cardin. What is that?
oh man,
What is that? What is that? A tweed? Is that a tweed, sir? Oh, that looks like a nice
oh,
piece of houndstooth there.
that's so funny. The
That
Native
I mean, like
Americans,
seriously.
Native Americans, they used to take horse dung and put it on their arrow,
Hmm.
so that way it would be
Hmm.
protected. In Vietnam, they used to take a variety of animals, sometimes even human feces, and they would put it on the spikes in the trap so that when they
Yeah.
stepped, they would. And so, even if you survive the initial wound, wherever it gets you, you are going to be tested.
Septimia,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, this happening, it's going down.
You got
That's
24
like
hours
been
into the
like
hospital.
since the begin, before since the beginning of time, we've also always used body
Mhm.
feces and things like that to fight with. People don't understand. It is what it is. Where do you think they figured out? Oh, I'm gonna stab this little frog in the rainforest, then I'm gonna stab you with him.
Mhm.
And what they
Mhm.
say, what's the word? Lumpu. Yeah. Now you sitting here like this.
You
You
can't-
feel that? You feel everything they do until you. They
right.
chopping your head off, and you
Right.
you
Yeah.
just
No.
like, oh yeah,
Body
come
paralytics.
on.
Oh yeah, there's so many of them that are not. And I think some of the most creative, and you can even see them too, like like blow dart guns, and you can get a number of things that will do that exact thing and paralyze, and then you're
Man,
just down, and all you felt was a little dart go into you, and you're looking at them like, oh yeah, that's funny. What'd you do to me? And then 30 seconds later, they can't move a muscle. You're like, uh huh.
like you're hurt.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh man.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of those I like a lot. I think that I don't know. I ever since Jared was murdered, I started exploring FMA and everything firearms, and the more I started training with everybody, the more I realized like going out to defend, and the things we do in martial arts. I think it is a good foundation, but I think the commercialization has totally just taken it a different direction, and they have stripped back the nastiness of the reality. And the majority of people, I hate that it's even a whole jury situation because they don't know. I mean, if I was going to do that, I would want a jury of veterans and people who knew violence. I'd want a jury of people who were screened and had lived in bad areas before. I want people who know what the hell they're talking about. Then
People don't understand like things like this.
mhm.
Okay.
From the yeah,
Uh People make fun of that. They make fun of that. Oh, that's nothing. I'm not trying to hit you in your face. I'm trying to pull your trachea out,
yeah.
okay? I'm trying to take my thumb and stick it in your nasal cavity
Hmm.
and push and close my fingers. I want to touch your corneas. You know what I'm saying, buddy? Like I'm not using that against hard tissue. I want to
Oh
hit
yeah,
soft things.
right.
It's like I said, man. Martial arts is secondary to the
Mhm.
science.
Yeah,
Your body can only do so much. Your
right,
body can only take so much pressure in certain areas. So
right,
you are going to react a certain way.
right.
You understand the science behind the motions and you can manipulate anything. That's
Yeah,
just how it is. That's
absolutely.
just how it is. And it's not always about being faster. It's about being more effective and more direct to the point to shutting down the nervous system. That's all it is.
Right.
You know, whether
Yeah.
you hitting the sesamoid, whether you're hitting the mandible,
Hmm.
whether you're letting that mandible slide over that sesamoid and you're going
Hmm.
night night, it
It's out.
doesn't matter.
That's right. Well, they help knock out
A
the blood
liver,
pressure
a
anyway.
liver shot,
Right.
liver shots, liver shots will shut you down, buddy.
Hmm.
So
Your
you practice that low line shot on the punching bag. Get used to hitting that. You know.
liver shots hurt, and and there's a number of them. You got lymph nodes all over your body. I think one of the ones, and right next to where you're just talking about, you got the mastoid process right back here. And there are guys who talk about that. And they'll take a pair of brass knuckles and they'll do a hook punch, but not to land in, to hook back towards, so that they take the jawline off through the mastoid process, and the jaw just comes out. And you can land it, but if you hook it back towards you, it's coming with you. And it's some
Yeah,
nasty,
man.
nasty things, man. Yeah,
You know,
it's
I've seen some different motions.
there's this is why I think everybody needs to go train with as many people as possible, because if you go, I've seen so many people stick to one instructor before, and I used to think that Parker's Kempo was like just the shit. I thought it was like the end all be all because I could do all these things, and then I start watching and doing grappling and stuff, and then I'm like flopping around like a fish on the mat. I can't get out of these locks, and people are tapping me out left, right, and sideways. And then,
Hmm.
all of a sudden, like a couple of years in, like I can start to grapple a little bit. And then, and that was just one arena, but getting into FMA, that's why I'm the biggest fan of the paintbrush. And you can do it with sponge brushes too, but the lipstick on it. So I just put some lipstick on a sponge brush, hand you one, have this right here. We wear white t-shirts, and then we just go. And then you see, like, you're dying in the knife fight. Like, we're both getting killed because of all the places that you're going to be tagged. And people have this idea. They're like, I'm going to stop it. I'm going to grab his wrist and I'm going to turn it. I'm going to break it. I'm going to take it back around. I'm going to stab him through the hand. And then I'm going to chop him and I'm going to punch him. And like, he killed you before you got to move two, because all he did was go, that's it.
Stop watching John Woo movies.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Cause look, Chow Yun Fat in the Die Another Day got shot at least 20 times.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That man kept getting up and shooting back and
Mm-hmm.
Johnny, hand bleeding, missing a finger. Johnny,
Right.
come on, bro.
Right.
Come on.
No,
Come on.
yeah,
No
you're right.
one wins in a knife fight.
No,
You know, no one wins in a knife fight. Everybody get cut. You know, there ain't no end all the win all fight
no, no.
mode
Whoever going to be
or
getting
method. I'm
violence,
sorry.
you know,
It's violence.
yeah,
That's what it
who
is.
gets
And
who gets
it's
the most blood
violence
cooking up,
controlled.
right?
You
Yeah,
know, and you have to control it. You have to control it. You can't just be in some type of a rage. It has to be controlled. It has to be precise, and it has to be end all to end all. And
right.
that's that, you
That's
know.
it.
And then you got to do the correct things after this violence has been exacted. You know, that's it.
You know what I was gonna say? I know I'm gonna kick off into the interview part, but we're gonna have to loop some of this conversation into the video too, the pre-talk. Because will you please talk about your story on why you stay? Why is that important?
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely. Legally, when you exact harm, physical harm on another person, uh, under weapons laws and things of that nature, you are supposed to stay to one, try to resuscitate or administer first aid, because once again, anything that you do to this individual, it shouldn't be out of malice. Should be clearly because they attacked you and you responded. So trying to help them after you responded is only a act of mercy.
Right,
And that act of mercy then transcends into you making a call to the police, and this is how that goes.
right,
Hey, there was an incident at such and such address, right across the street from such and such store.
right.
My name is such and such.
Like
Get here fast.
that's it. Yes, I've heard a number of lawyers talk about that too, and they're like limited information, but tell them what happened and click.
That is, there was an incident. You can say you don't want to say involving a gun, involving a
Right,
knife. There
right.
was an incident.
I've heard that a lot. Yep.
That portion right there. There was an incident.
Okay.
That is like a binding contract to the police to come see what has occurred.
Right,
And so once you say that, that's what has to occur.
right,
But like I said, once again, that goes back to what people are going to allow and
mhm,
what people won't allow.
right,
You know, you can't be so angry
mhm,
at the fact that you were attacked that you neglect to stay
right,
and report the scenario, because then there's no one there to tell your side of what occurred. You have to rely on CC television and other eyewitnesses at that point. But if you were in the right, there's no need to leave.
right. Well,
And
absolutely. Strategically speaking, what do you tell the people? And do you have like a set amount of distance you go? So, say you have a couple other guys that were there, they're coming up on you. Because I have a thing about this of always staying cognizant. Where is his friends? So, say you put down the threat, you're not leaving the scene, but you are for the immediate moment. Would you go to your vehicle? Would you hide? What do you think on that? You have to be out of the immediate
uh,
proximity.
you if you let's put it this way. I'm going to put this the nice way. If the threat is dispatched, okay, and he's dispatched, okay, retreat to your vehicle. You know, you have your if you had to use a tool, make sure that your tool has not been cleaned. It's back in its upright
Right,
position.
right. Holster in the seat.
And
Yep.
here you go.
Right,
Okay. If it was that of a firearm, of course you want to make sure nothing in the chamber, no magazine,
mm,
locked out. There you go, officer. That kind of scenario. But like I said, watching for friends. Now that's where being dually tooled up comes in handy. This happened.
right,
Okay, guys,
right,
I'm going to call the cops. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to take care of this the legal way.
right,
If you like to administer some help to your buddy, you can, but you need to stay away from me.
right. Very good. That's one is none and two is one. That's
You
right.
know what I'm saying? And that's very simple.
Yep.
You know, but like I said, once again, you don't want to be making these decisions based off of your emotion or your ego. So if you're in the bar, you get to arguing, you're tooled up in one way or another. This should not be your first reaction to being punched in the jaw.
Right. Yep.
Okay? And if that's your first reaction, maybe you need to understand a little bit more of why you train.
And don't carry in a bar. Yeah. No, it's a good point. I had an instructor once tell us that, you won't carry, he'll carry in a bar if he has a drink. If he has a second drink, he puts it in the car. If he has a third drink,
There
he
you
calls a
go.
friend. And I
There
think
you go.
for weapons, that's really important. Now, I don't know about you. I wouldn't hold the same through with a knife. I'm not taking my knife off me at any time. That's staying on me. But my firearm, I
And
can.
so, yeah. Now, me personally, I have little tricks.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
like your, I
they
like
do
your
all,
tricks. Yep, yep,
they do all of this. They do all of this, and the whole time I'm talking to them, it's changing hands.
yep. You should do a master class on that. That was brilliant,
That
and I loved it. I
this
was
one,
like, yes,
this is one I like. I don't know if you can see this, but it's one I've used a couple times. Uh, right
Yeah. Yep.
now, okay, you can see that, right?
Right.
You can see that. Now you can't.
Right.
Now watch this. Man, I don't understand what the problem is. Why are you tripping? This is not a this is not a problem. That lean
Right.
takes the eye line towards the top of your forehead.
Right.
Man, what are you tripping off of?
Right.
Now they think you're encroaching space. They're not watching your hands, they're watching your face.
Right. Right.
You know,
Misdirect. Yeah.
motions like that.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, the guy, this right
Hmm.
here,
Hmm.
I'm like this. That right there, just for a few seconds.
Right.
You know,
Move some things
but
around. Yeah. Yeah. So
did
do
you
you
see what
carry
just happened?
the one in the yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you carry specific ones with different sizes? Because I heard a couple people talk about that about don't work. Because I'm somebody who always carries at least two blades, sometimes three. But I got a buck knife, right? And yeah, so do you prefer the smaller ones for that reason? And what's the smallest one
Be-
you carry?
where is it?
Oh, I love it. Oh man, that's beautiful.
That's one of those things, man. That's one of those things. Um, Trying to be a part of the solution should
Mhm.
be your first reaction to any type of violent scenario. But if there's a thing of distance and a thing of space, try to utilize that to leave. Now, if that individual is encroaching on your space or the distance between you and he or you and she, whatever the scenario might be, and they are weaponed up,
Mhm.
you have to make, like I said, split decisions. And the decisions have to be based out of necessity and need rather than emotion.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to get upset because an individual is challenging you and off your own switch.
I like
You
that.
know,
Right. Right.
but okay, this fool's inebriated. He don't even know what he's talking about. Double him up.
Hmm.
Hey,
Hmm.
hey, hey.
Right. Right.
Hey, take care of your boy.
Right.
Get your dude,
Yeah.
man. Get your mans.
100%. That's
You
yeah.
know,
I don't even like teaching punches for cry. We'll do elbows, we'll do knees. I will go over some things with punches, but for the most part, it's forearm to elbow on both sides, ear to ear, and then
mhm.
the back there. But I don't like having. I'm a guitar player, so I don't want my fingers messed up anyway. But this is probably one of the easiest ways to miss, whereas that is a lot harder. And there's so much of these that 100%. You're trying to do like people will when they go to punch anyway. I'm like you're kind of taking away some of your skills because you could just go palm up, deploy the fence right off the bat anyway, but you can go palm up and then you can immediately just rotate it and you have a second strike there with the lat I mean, and there are so many of those, in Kung Fu, there's so many of those in Wing Chun that you can, and I was a Kempo guy too. I started learning all these other things and I was like, man, there's a lot of really good stuff. Oh, right there. But always to the neckline because people punching them in the face, I'm like, listen, that hurts. But the neck, you
Yeah,
can't breathe. You're not
the
fighting.
bones, there are bones in
Right.
the face.
100%.
People don't understand. I'm gonna punch you in the side of your neck,
Right.
right up under your ear.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm.
know,
Master
I'm gonna
problem.
punch you. I'm gonna hammer fist the top of your clavicle.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm coming
Mm.
down like
That is
you
a
know,
good way to drop
uh,
somebody.
y-
100%.
you know, I might, get behind you and punch you in your sphincter. I don't know.
There you go.
you know, you know. If I kick you in your tailbone and your
Right.
coccyx,
And
anything.
that'll break 100%. Yep. Yes,
You
sir.
know, anything to get you to leave me alone. But if, like I said, once again, if we are talking about weapons,
Right.
edged, blunt force, guns, there is a definitive moment where you have to say, run or go to work.
Right.
And if you do decide to go to work as a conscious human being, at least you should do is
I try to help.
notify the proper authorities.
Right.
Now if you did your job correctly, that
Yeah,
shouldn't be anything to be
no, be
worried about.
notified. Yeah. No, there's not going to be any medical.
But
So,
at that point, but you should notify at all times. Yes, sir.
absolutely agree with that. And the notified. Let me ask you this one. This one is kind of, so it depends on interpretation because I've heard it both ways. And I like to tell all my students this very specifically. You have to know about your area, your demographic, and forget all the noise
Yes.
about the other outside of it. Because what's going to happen with you, it doesn't matter that federal law supersedes local. You're not going to be getting charged by the Fed. Most likely, you're going to be in a sheriff's
No.
department. And we saw during COVID, people were being put in handcuffs at 7-Elevens over mandates, which are not statutes, and it didn't matter. Now, they got released later, but I don't care. Being put in handcuffs is being put in handcuffs. So whether they call it a mandate or a statute, I'm not looking for that. You have to know, what's going on for you in your area. So for that
Yeah.
specifically, so I know that there's been case law. And this is what I like to tell my students on it. You have to know for your area and be aware. Some places you can be pursued if you don't give medical. Some places you can be pursued if you do give medical because unless you have a current certification. So I've got like CPR, AED, and then I don't know, you see a lot of times in my videos, I carry a tourniquet there right on my
Hmm.
duty belt and a rat's tourniquet. That's always on me just because I got the one, I'm going to have the other. And I didn't always do that, but I wanted to make sure and then I got a certification for these things because if you do touch them and you're trying to help but you don't have a certification, it's not going to be the criminal side. That part will always help with the
It's
criminal side.
civil.
It's a civil. Then they're going to be like, well, did you know what you were doing? What made you qualified? So I mean, 1,000% on the phone call. What do you think about and how do you teach it for your students? Do you tell them that part on the civil section, or do you tell them just try to get medical anyway? Because if you do get them to live, a lot of that just goes away.
It is. It is this. What was the scenario and what had to be done?
Right. Okay. So situations
You
change over
know,
time. But so you say you
yeah,
put it
like
down, you think you can save them.
now let's say you went upper abdomen, lung,
Mm. Puncture alone. That's right.
okay? Maybe you just did something like that. Okay. Now, he may have an issue breathing for a minute. But if he can slow his breathing by talking to him calmly, keeping him alert without actually having to do anything, you're good.
Right.
But now,
That's true.
now if you went highline and gave him a necktie,
Hmm.
well,
He's got moments till he's got to be with a surgeon, and if it's the
you
surgeon,
know,
he's got
you
problems.
know,
Yeah.
go talk or you can have a conversation with him with the Lord. You can
Right.
introduce him. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
Lord, I, I'm sending you one of your kids.
Right.
You might want to talk to
You know,
him.
I've wondered about that too before, though. Like, because if you did that, say you weren't qualified, because sometimes people will ask, well, if I don't have certifications, what do I do? I think if provided there's no more threats, I'm not concerned about his friends coming around. You stop and pray for a moment because the cameras are everywhere. But I think that kind of a thing will always be appropriate for the yes, like you said, sending them to them. But even if you don't believe,
Hey, Lord, be like, I'm sorry about that, Lord, but here's one of your children.
right?
He didn't trip. You know.
I think both
You
comically,
know,
but also seriously. Yeah, you could
yeah,
say a
you
prayer,
know.
and that's not going to look bad in court that you stopped and you said
In
a
court,
prayer in a
no.
moment.
And that's the whole thing about it. That's the whole thing about it. If you ever have to utilize the arts that you have been taught, you got to realize you can't just go breaking people up and go home. It don't work that way.
Right. For you, do you carry anything? And I don't want you to. I was going to ask you to show your one trick with the hand that we were talking about, but I want you to give anything away. I want you to save a bunch of stuff for the classes. Um,
Okay.
carry anything for medical? Do you have like so? I like the tourniquet, and then I have sucking wound patches. I'll have in my EDC just because I got a little pouch. Do you
Um,
carry anything?
e- Epiclot,
Okay,
uh, gauze, tourniquet, tape,
perfect.
that kind of
That's
stuff.
more than I carry. That's awesome. Yeah, so
You
that's
know,
perfect. And I think is that something you recommend to your students as well? Like, hey, if you're going to
uh,
carry the solution to the solution.
yeah. Whether you carrying a blade or you're carrying a firearm, you need to have them things on you somewhere close by.
Right.
You know, definitely you may
Perfect.
not have it on you directly
Right.
at the point of altercation, but you should be able to
Okay.
step away to the vehicle
Right.
and grab that, or at least have someone who can go grab that for you.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Absolutely. Perfect. Perfect. Your stuff is so amazing with the flow, all the things that you go through and you do, and then, but I almost wish I'm going to give like a whole series for you and your channel, your lessons. The amount of things that you know and share was just crazy. The first time we were doing the call for the and for audience watching. This is Instructor Hargrove. We were going through a number of us instructors and looking at collaboration, and the amount of lessons Instructor Hargrove has is just phenomenal. And
it's just
so
it's
many.
so simple. Everything has to be simple. Since it's like I can teach footwork in the 30-minute abridged version.
Mhm.
I can teach footwork for an hour and a half
Right,
because there's so many different smaller circles that the feet can make. There's
right,
so many different half steps or cross steps that a
right.
person can take in making a circle.
Yeah,
You know, seeking a
absolutely.
path, finding a lane, but yeah, we could do a whole. I know I appreciate the kudos or the hands out
Yeah,
because it's hard to qualify what you do when it has become an art.
right,
Like I could never teach a person my flow, but
right.
I could definitely teach them the skills to find their own.
Yeah, oh,
You
that's
know,
perfect.
the
Oh my
art,
God.
the art the art is how you interpret the
Right,
science that I'm giving you.
right,
So if I give you the science, the flow has to be your own. If we
right,
talk about FMA, some of the guys teaching this were missing hands,
right. Yeah,
had stunted feet,
right,
and that's where you get these different styles.
right.
And so, but they were the best around at what they did.
Yeah,
They had so many different what do you call it? Interviews with people like Floyd Villabreo.
mhm.
He made a comment that there were escrimadors and Kalimen who could swing their stick so fast that it could break stone concrete. So when you
Yeah,
think about stuff like that,
right.
think about the application of hitting you upside your head
Yeah,
or hitting you in your kneecap.
yeah. It's
That's a
all the art.
total that's a total different thing going on. You know,
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
think about putting your arm up to stop that.
Right. No, you yeah, just it's a broken arm. 100% going right through.
You standing here like this, talking about my fellows.
Yep, pretty much.
You
Pretty
know,
much.
come on.
That well, and I think there's a big difference between those of martial arts training for necessity and for sport or commercialization and talking theory. The people who are missing hands, they had to learn that lesson one time, and they never miss that other hand again. Because when you have that necessitation of it gets real on that level, you look at things in a whole different perspective. Because it's not about
Mm.
commercialization now; it's about survival, and that's really the whole
Oh,
point of this whole thing.
oh, most definitely. I think by the time I was 10 years old, I realized that what I had learned in a commercial gym was not what was going to be something to help me survive,
Mhm.
you know,
Yes, sir.
because, you know, while belt systems are good in training and teaching, by the time I was 12, I had my first.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
you know, and then, because your mind's not all the way developed.
Right.
So you can never truly understand at 12 years old. You just were good enough to do a set group of katas and
Mhm.
motions, and everybody says you're good to go. But that's the thing there.
Absolutely. Very well put, sir.
You know.
Last couple here. If you could give the audience one mental tool or a piece of invisible armor to carry with them, what would it be?
You are only as good as your training. Not all battles need to be fought with your hands and feet. And that if you do have to utilize your art, remember the legalities of what you had to do and make sure that whatever was done is justified.
That's excellent.
That's
Thank you
all.
so much for that. That yes, yes, yes. All of that and that, my goodness, that is probably the best invisible armor. I think everybody need to be putting those things on
You know,
for
you
sure.
you gotta think like that. Don't go out over with a haughty air.
Right.
Be humble. You've
Yeah.
learned what you've learned, so you don't have to fight. You didn't learn what you learned to prove how good you were at fighting.
Yes, sir. Yes,
You know.
sir. Absolutely. All right. And then lastly, all these years later, has your perspective changed about any of the things from the occurrence? And have you changed anything about what you train now versus then for yourself and or for your students?
Uh, they only. I will say this. I only train for intention. Uh, Intent to stop, intent to protect, and or you know intent of resolving situations. I do not train with the ideal of murder or anything of that nature.
Right.
But that's what it could turn into.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Excuse me. If you're not responding in the proper manner.
Right.
Okay, if you're responding off of emotion, you could be definitely walking into a situation where you will unknowingly or wantingly commit the act of murder. Because, like I said, there is that fine line between self defense and murder. So you have to make sure that each and every time that you do anything in relation to your martial skill, the ends is justified by what is coming at you. That's all.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's so much of your teachings, all of them is fantastic. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
No, no
These are
problem.
these are the lessons that I don't feel are in martial arts schools enough. There aren't some places out there. I know some that will teach these things, but I feel it is few and far between. And for as many schools that are out there and the maybe a couple dozen of them that I know will touch on different things, but all of this and your teachings there and bringing all these things together conceptually is
Oh yeah,
amazing.
thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
try to, like I said, I try to keep it simple. There's not a whole bunch. I don't. I teach for the sake of drills, patterns, and things of that nature. But when it comes down to go time, there ain't no pattern.
Right.
Situations are going to dictate your tactics to protect your peace. So, in an effort to protect your peace, whether that means making a couple defensive motions and getting up out of there, or digging in and putting in some work, that is what it is. But at the same time, like I said, and I always will say this: understand the ramifications of your actions, and
Right.
always be willing to stand behind anything that you do.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Very, very, very well said. So, with your program coming up, I know. So you talked about that a little bit. Is that is still being built up? Are you going to be doing any of it online?
Oh no, well, that is and that is part of something that is already ongoing with
Okay.
the city community centers, and my brother in arms, Lee Holmes, aka Brother Emperor, my brother Salamander. They are out here doing that. When I can, I do go and I take part in some of these classes. And we, like I said, we've been doing this for a few years. Last year, we were at the Wesley House. We do a lot of things with Better Family Life, which is a community based organization here in St. Louis, Missouri. And we do a lot of things in relation to protecting women and disenfranchised communities and in individuals.
That is awesome. I love that. I love that so much. And I know, being a parent, that's yes, yes, please, yes, please.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Our community centers here in St. Louis actually offer everything from basketball, um, community awareness. They even have programs that kind of to introduce these young folks into politics and things like that. I try to stay away from the corruption myself, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's always good to understand the laws and the things that govern you.
that is awesome.
That is awesome.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So people can find
So
you
people
there
can
on
find you
TikTok,
there
on
on
Instagram,
TikTok, you
on
can find me
Facebook.
on TikTok. You can find me on Facebook. Like I said, official Blackie Chan on Instagram. Blackie Chan 85 or just Blackie Chan. You'll see me. If I got the Scully on or the Pooh Shiesty mask, it's me. I'm a
Right.
city dweller, so I move that way. Um, uh, Facebook, Christopher Blackie Chan Hargrove. Been out here for a long time. People know me, some people don't. One of the greatest known unknowns.
Right. There you
You
go.
know, there you go.
Awesome.
Blessings to everybody that out there listening in the cyber world.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
You
you
have a
so
great
much, sir.
evening.
You have a great
And
evening. You
all
too,
of our
sir.
audience,
And I'm gonna catch you on the flip flop, brother.
we